acronym. It stands for Passions, Experiential Learning, Authentic Tasks, and Knowledge Building. So we're really trying to take the learning and make it tangible, making it real. We're trying to answer that question that students have is, when am I ever going to use this? We're trying to answer that for them. And so we have a lot of different things that we do about field trips, internships, programs, mentors, all of those things. And one of those things is our immersive screen. So part of our goal as a school was our head of school wanted us to kind of keep up with the Joneses and have a VR lab. That was kind of the big thing about 7 years ago. VR labs, every school needed to have one. We have 6 competitor schools within about a 10-mile radius. So we're all fighting for the same type of students and families. And so we were a little bit slow, and I was a little slow playing it with the VR lab because I wasn't sure if that was really where we wanted to go. Because for us, every time I would go and visit a school, I would walk into a really cool room with a bunch of headsets, some computers, but I rarely saw students in there. And I was always thinking that that was because I was going on a tour and there just wasn't a class, and that's why the tour was happening at that time. But really, as I dove deeper into conversations, it was, there wasn't a lot of educational content on the headsets. It was difficult to load content and get students set up, ready to go. Every class, it would always take 10 or 15 minutes to get kids loaded in to where you want them to be. And then the third thing was teachers kind of were removed from the learning experience. So although there are different platforms that can help address this issue, the teacher was kind of a bystander and not really sure where students were. They'd have to walk around and see screens. Okay, this is where you are. All right, everyone stop. I want to fill you in some other context here of why this is a meaningful engagement. And so it just wasn't really appealing to me. And it was a conversation with 2 lower school science teachers around different biomes that the lower school kids were talking about. And we got into a conversation about priming the brain and how much adding a little bit of context, getting them to make them imagine that they're in this space, how much that helps with brain development and brain synapses forming and retention of information. And I said, how cool would it be if we could project on the walls when we're talking about the grasslands in Africa, like grasslands all around them? Like first graders would just get so excited about that. And so that's where I dove into trying to figure out, like, how could we do that? We're about to build a new building, so I was like, we're gonna have flat walls and the kids are gonna go in there and they're gonna have this really cool experience. And I talked to a school in Texas that tried to do that, and it wasn't a great thing for them. They had built it in this kind of district location. The idea was schools were gonna come in. They had one piece of content. It was kind of clunky to be able to do, and they were looking for another school to do one so they could have a partner to develop, but they never used it. Outside of the kickoff launch of it, where everyone came in and was amazed, they just never used it. People couldn't figure out a way to leverage it. So that was a little bit of a different feel for me, but I came across Elumenati and we looked at the immersive screen and being able to do a panorama. They were like, yeah, we can help you with that. That's a cool idea. Let's talk about what you're trying to do. And so we landed on developing out our panorama to fit a classroom. We can fit anywhere. It's different size kids. So we can fit 50 first graders into the room, or we can fit about 25 high schoolers comfortably in those spaces. And so we went with the immersive panorama versus a VR lab. 1, because I think it's better for teaching and learning. And then 2, it also was a little bit separates us a little bit from our competitors. The other thing is, right in the middle of all this was we had just kind of gone into the pandemic, and the idea of sharing a bunch of headsets with student cases didn't seem the most prudent thing to be doing. And so this is kind of a couple of shots just to give you context. So we have floor seats that can recline, and so the kids love to get in there and get up on the front row and lean back, and they feel like they're in the space. But we also have chairs and tables, so depending on how the teacher wants to set up the space, we can set it up that way. But you can just see how, how much they're kind of locked in and wanting to be in that space. And we also, so this is Stellarium, we did that a couple of weeks ago, an open space, and it was fantastic. The first graders, you can see that one kid's already got his hand up. I mean, we did constellations because they had just studied that and they were going through the planets, and being able to go between those two platforms for them was awesome. My favorite thing is to see a bunch of younger kids whenever you're flying to a new planet, or in the geolocated, going into a geolocated bubble on the globe, they put their wings out and they feel like they're flying. And it's just an adorable thing, but it also shows you just how much they're engaged in that. So for us, one of the parts of our mission statement is to build a lifelong love of learning. And so for us, we think about like how do we leverage this for teaching and learning? And so we want to prime the brain. There's all this brain research about if you can prime the students' brains, get them interested before you teach it, there's a greater retention. And so we want to do that. How can we do that? We want to enhance lessons. We only have one screen, one classroom, and a bunch of teachers. So one of the things is I tell my teachers is do not build the lesson around this. We're going to enhance the lesson with this. Because in the event that there's a conflict and you can't book the room, I don't want you not to be able to teach your lesson and get frustrated. So we always want to enhance the lesson and not do that. We want to engage learners in a new way. We are constantly competing with kids these days with this, right? So they have this, they're always walking around with it. When we tell them they can't have it, they put it in their bag, and then they open up their laptop. We're a one-to-one laptop school, and now they're in this screen, right? So we're kind of trying to compete that, and although this is yet another screen, this one they're looking at together, right? It's taking the individualized experience and trying to make it more collaborative. And then we want to make it interactive. How do we make this more interactive for our students? Because that's where we kind of hook them and keep them kind of coming back to it. So we've engaged all types of disciplines in this. It has not, I think the least amount has actually been in space. It's been in almost every other discipline. Big ones, surprisingly, history, our history teachers love it. Our English teachers actually love it. So our 7th grade does the Diary of Anne Frank, the play. They've always read it, and they've in the last few years have done the virtual tour of the Anne Frank house on their computers. But the last 2 years since we've had the Dome, we've done that in the Dome, and it has changed dynamically the engagement of the students just doing it as a collective, which is really weird because it's the exact same experience, just 8.5 feet tall, 26 feet wide versus, 10 by 10 or 11 by 11. So these are a couple of quotes that I was just going to kind of go through a little bit quickly here just to kind of give you some sense of what the teachers have said. So 4th grade history, the immersive screen is an integral part of our American Revolution unit in 4th grade. The students commented that seeing it so up close and personal made them feel like they were part of the battles. So this is an example of when a teacher has an idea teaching American Revolution. They say, hey, is there any 360 video of that? And I'm like, sorry, they didn't have cameras back then. But, let's see what we can do. We actually found some really great content of a battle reenactment. So this is a 360 on the hat of a red coat soldier, and they are in the battle. And so what's really cool about this is as the students have been reading it and talking about and discussing it, then to be able to pull this up and show them what it looked like, right? How they're in formation. As the video plays, they start to get out of formation. They start to run up and then fall back. And it talks about the confusion of war and all of those different things. It talks about how young the people were in the battle, who were doing the drumming and carrying the flags. So it brings it to life and provides a whole different context. What's really cool about the way we've tried to do that is, and I don't have it set up here, unfortunately my hard drive didn't export it correctly, but what we can do is I have this video set up with a series of other ones, and I have an external HDMI plug-in that up in the corner of the screen here will put the teacher's PowerPoint slides. And so the teacher doesn't just come here for 5 minutes of the video and then go back to their classroom. They're teaching their lesson here, and so the notes that they want the kids to take on, the information they want them to convey, they can sit here and click just like I was a second ago with my mouse, with the clicker, through their PowerPoint slides. We have our 7th grade English. That was the Diary of Anne Frank. She had talked about she's been doing this for the last few years. And the level of engagement, increase in engagement, the questioning, the deepening of conversation around that has been very noticeable by her. More students are asking questions, and the questions that they're asking are less yes and no questions and more that deepen the conversation. So she's been super excited. She's done it twice already, now both years. She comes back. The great thing is we've already got it built for her, so every time she comes in, she's coming in more and more confident and ready to go, and she just comes in and drives it. Our 6th grade geography, that looks weird there. I put this quote in here because we had a teacher who's new to us, not new to teaching, but new to us. And during pre-planning, when new faculty were on campus, I gave a demo, and he was like, wait a second, I can use this for geography? Like, I can literally put the globe there, and we can like zoom in, and I can talk about all the different landmarks, longitude, latitude, and everything. He's like, can this be my classroom? Can I just live here? And so he was just fascinated by this, and he has come in several times to teach it because it creates a much greater context for the students. And so it's so cool to be able to put lat and longitude on the globe and be able to rotate it around and be able to see that. Some of that stuff is science on a sphere. Some of the stuff is some other resources that we found. But again, we just pop up his PowerPoint slides over in the corner, and he's teaching his lesson. Ancient World Narratives, this is a 9th grade class. What we've been able to do here, we've been able to find a lot of YouTube videos, which are great. You've seen a lot of that stuff done. One of the other things we're able to do is to actually use our tablet as a touch screen and be able to go to a website and do virtual tours via that way. So one of the sites that we go to, I mentioned this site because this is a group of archaeologists that have been going in and kind of 3D mapping and then rebuilding different places. And these are 6-month-long subscriptions. All right, so here's ancient Athens, and what I really like about ancient Athens and this site, and you can use it for anything, but now the idea is now that I'm here, I can actually look on the tablet. So as a teacher, okay, this is what it used to look like, right? This is what it used to look like. There's a lot of different talking points to pull up what it looks like today, and then to go to another location within the city that they've done a new model for, and to be able to look around here. So for a teacher who's talking about ancient Athens and being able to do it, you can see how this could be really a powerful tool for an ancient narratives, ancient world history class to be able to leverage. And so again, being able to look at this and then switch, look at what it looks like today, what's left of it, is a really kind of cool experience. And it's a way of us kind of taking that virtual field trip where we want to go. So our 12th grade oceanography, so we had oceanography as an elective. We're in Atlanta, not near the ocean. So that was a kind of a little bit of a dull class. They always would say, hey, can we go to the beach? That was one of the things that they thought they were going to do on a regular basis. We couldn't make that happen. However, because of this, we were able to bring them in almost once a week to be able to come in and look at different things here. And it gave that sense, and a lot of times, a much better classroom experience of being able to sit there and point out everything we wanted to underneath the water without having to get scuba certified and everything else that we needed to. Coding for Art. This is a really cool program that we've started a couple of years ago. It is now a 2-year program or 3-year program that we've started that kind of takes the coding and processing into the art classroom. And so those of our students who are interested in coding, but AP Computer Science may not be the right place for them, we kind of introduce it to them in a way that they can see all the stuff that they're doing, and it makes it real tangible for them. And so we've seen kids that have gone and started in our Coding for Art class where they can see how they're manipulating the code and what's actually happening, and then they go to AP Computer Science and flourish. We've seen others who go to AP Computer Science and then they do data structures and they're like, I don't have anything else to do. So one of our challenges is time. Time is the currency of teachers. And so when do they have time to do this? And that's where I try to make the amount of time that they have to put towards this as small as possible. Again, they already have their lessons built out. I want them to focus on the teaching part of it and the facilitation part, and let me and my student interns take over that. So I try to tell them, don't recreate the wheel just because we're not redesigning your lesson, we're enhancing it. So keep your lesson the same. Let's not have to start over from scratch, but let's figure out ways and how we can plug into it. And then we try to come up with an efficient workflow to make that process a little bit faster for us. And so this is what that workflow ended up becoming. So a teacher has an idea. They say, oh, I want to do something with, this is a really dry part of my unit. I want to try to figure out something. So they submit via Google form their idea and their lesson plan and their PowerPoint slides or whatever they have. They submit that. It notifies me and my student interns. We look at it and say, okay, what are they trying to achieve here? And then we will review the materials, try to find things that we feel like might fit. We say, is this kind of what you were going for? There's a little bit of communication back and forth around that. And then once that we say, yeah, that looks great, and these resources will work, then I have my student interns build out a composition. That takes a couple of days for them, and then they notify the teacher. Teacher books the classroom space, and they walk in. So for the teacher standpoint, they are just walking in and picking up the tablet and going. So we try to handle all that on the back end. This is kind of what our form looks like. It's just some basic kind of email, what division that they're in, some other things, and then it has the ability for them to add, I want this picture, I want this, here's my PowerPoint slides, so we can have all of that uploaded for them before they walk in, and then we can also check everything. It also gives them an opportunity to add any URLs that they have found, which is something that's really helpful because in a second I'll tell you that we're trying to get more people included in the search rather than just us, and I give them some ideas of where to look, YouTube 360, AirPano, 3D tour, websites, those types of things. Once they've done all that and we've green-lighted it and we're working on the composition, they go into our bookings page, so they click on the booking and then they populate what class times they want to come into, and they book as many as they need on whatever day and time they need, and then that populates on that calendar. So they can also see who's already booked the space, and it makes it a little bit easier for us to kind of manage. So we talked about time. The other thing is the work. That's a lot of work for teachers to have to learn WorldViewer or any of that software. So we try to manage that by having student interns. So I have students who come in, I teach them how to build out a composition, and they are receiving, and this is for them a valuable experience because now they have a client and they are executing it as a consultant. They're getting the materials, and then they have their expertise within WorldViewer to build out that composition, to make it their own, to add their little stake into it, get feedback from them, and then the teacher walks in, and the day of, we just load it for right before they come in. Teacher walks in, and they're driving it. And so because the teacher is really just driving it, they're the ones teaching the lesson. They're the facilitators. I don't want to have to sit behind a computer and have to have somebody else dictate to me, like Adam's having to do with me, hey, click this, now open this, now do this, because it breaks up the presentation piece. And so the teachers are the drivers. They get really comfortable coming in and picking up the tablet and pushing the buttons and opening up what they want to go to, because we've talked about the flow, the storyboarding, as Adam had talked about. They know exactly what's going to come next, and we've named everything, so it's easy for them to know the flow of what they want to go and how they want to do it. Content, so we've been leveraging a lot of online resources. Initially, we were reaching out to folks to try to get files and everything, and sometimes you don't hear back from people. And so because we don't have a lot of time to build these things, we started leveraging more and more online resources. So streaming videos, the big game changer for us has been that using it as a web, the HTML interface, and leveraging that, because that just opens up a whole nother arena for us. We do have our Steam VR set up, so we will use a PS4 controller. One of our history teachers likes to do Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, and so he's navigating and doing that. So we're doing that, and then we also generate our own content. So we have 360 cameras. We have 3 different types now that we will give teachers, check it out, and they go out and they film their own 360 footage, and then bring it back and we upload it in. So we have a middle school Spanish teacher who we have a big Day of the Dead celebration at a cemetery downtown, and it's on a Saturday, and so she couldn't get her students there. So she just took our camera, went out, filmed each of the altars, did still images, 360 images, did 360 videos of different celebrations, parades, and then she incorporated that into her lecture. And so when she came into class, we had her notes up. She had all the videos. She knew which clips she had taken. And so she's able to sit there and talk about all of the different things. So it was almost like the kids were able to go to the festival, even though it was on a non-school day. So we're generating our own content. We're also part of a Round Square network, which is 115 schools around the world, where a group of students go on to conferences, and they're immersed into different cultures. And so we send with them a camera on that trip, and they are supposed to be kind of like bloggers around the trip, so that when they go, there's only 4 or 5 that are going on the trip, but when they come back, we now can document that presentation. And so when they're sharing back to their peers or to parents or anything like that, we can curate that into that space. And then over time, we can geolocate some of that footage on a globe to talk about all the different impactful things we have. So community gardens is the interactive part. So behind me, you can see there's a little garden there. If you'd like to take out your smartphone, you should be able to scan that QR code. Hopefully that's going to be big enough for you. And it should take you to a site. And what you're going to see on your phone is it'll say draw a new flower. But it should bring up, and you'll see like what looks like a petal. And if you use your finger, you can draw inside the petal, and it's going to create a pattern, and you can change the colors. And when you click Share Flower, you're going to start to see little seeds float out into the garden and bloom. And so this is one of our Coding for Art projects. This is the teacher actually developed this for a children's museum in Pittsburgh. But she uses this as kind of the start of the year to the class and saying, how do we make art interactive? How do we make digital art interactive? And so now you can get a lot of people coming in and interacting with art and creating art and making it their own, and it changes. And so this is kind of a really cool process. And what's really neat about it is the flowers that you guys are planting right now are going to be showing up in that children's museum in Pittsburgh. And so we're able to share. So there's always flowers blooming, which I just think is kind of a nice positive thing, right? So we talked about our students. How do we get our students to engage in that way? And so we're trying to get them to think about the human interaction, right? How do we get our human interaction going into our artwork and the digital content that we create? So this becomes our canvas, and it really kind of challenges the students to create. So space and schedule, that's something that we only have one space, so we really try to be flexible with that. We try to work with teachers as best we can. And then we also say if we can't get in the room, just teach the lesson, right? Don't let the learning stop, because hopefully it's going to be a good enough lesson without it. Creating buy-in, getting teachers to actually want to do it is always tough, because if the first time it goes wrong will be the last time they try it. So I try to do a lot of stuff ahead of time to make sure it works. And so we try to make it easy, and then as soon as they have success with it, they want to come back. So it's been good that way. And then for us, we haven't been scared to try stuff, so we've just really dove in head first into Worldviewer and have been trying to create stuff. The templates that Adam was talking about today has really expedited our workflow and made things a lot easier. And so that's been big for us in terms of what we're trying to do. For us, the current trends in education are AI. AI is what everybody's talking about. I don't see AI really impacting how we're teaching. I think it's going to be really leveraged for remediation and efficiency for teachers. So I think what this does is it allows teachers to be more creative about how they engage with students, and then be able to provide one-on-one remediation leveraging the AI. At least that's how we see things and how we've started to incorporate AI for us. So there's a lot of opportunities. We're looking at using some gesturing. So when we talk about the interactive art this summer, we're going to do some gesturing camera work to where now when we're doing this could be a white canvas, and using your hand, you could be painting on the wall. You could be turning the 360 video using our hands. So you really feel like you're controlling it, doing a little bit of Harry Potter type stuff. And then scalability, I think the more content that is there, the more K-12 institutions are willing to do it. They're always scared to put their toe in the water if there's not a lot of the content there for them. So as we're building content, we're wanting to share it. So we do have another school in Augusta, which is about 2.5 hours away from us, who has the same screen. And so now I've got a partner close to us with the exact same setup, so we're able to share stuff. But a lot of what we do, I think, could fit and work in a dome.